Well, we're off to a good start. Welcome, everyone, to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome, as always, to each of you, to all that you bring with you to this space, to your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, your differences, all that helps make you who you are is welcome here this morning. So welcome to one and all, those of you who are here in person in the room with us, those of you who are streaming with us as well. It's so good to have all of you. So thanks for being here. Got just a couple of announcements before we take a couple of minutes to greet one another. Another reminder that Reverend Craig Morrow's online class on the Satanic Verses and how it applies to current freedom of speech issues will begin next Saturday, December 3rd at 10 a.m. It's a 5-week course at 10 a.m. And if you're interested, please see our son for details, and Craig's email is there as well, so you could let him know directly that you want to be part of that. Also, I want to let you know again that we are having a new member orientation coming up following our services on Sunday, December 12th from 12:30 to 2 p.m. Okay, Sunday, December 12th from 12:30 to 2 p.m. And that's going to, is it 11? Thank you. I was wondering. I was looking at the 12 and I'm like, I don't think that's right, but I'm also was listening. Surely somebody's going to correct me on that. December 11th at 12:30 to 2 p.m. And it is going to be here in the sanctuary. It will be streamed as well, and it will be Zoomed. So folks who've been curious about potentially becoming a member of our congregation, we invite you to stay for that wherever you're at to learn a bit more about the history of Unitarian Universalism, about our church, and to answer any questions you might have. If you are streaming with us, you might try Zooming that day. That way you'll be able to ask any questions directly that you might have as well. So looking forward to that. And if you just want to attend as somebody who's already a member as well, just kind of for a little refresher, you're welcome to do that as well. Okay, let's take a few moments to greet one another now. And if you are joining us for the first time, don't be shy. Hey, what are you doing? Oh my goodness. It's so big. Verse 6.
Question and probably a point of clarification, but they will say their Sunday, 4th, 7th, 10th, 11th. Is it the dates? Rather than the day of the week?
I think I left him last week. Oh my goodness, I did. Oh, hi Zuri, how are ya? You did?
Yes, they're going to talk. They're going to talk today.
Was it fun?
Sound good?
Was it the your mountain?
Huh? Yeah.
I like that one.
They're going to talk.
Let me try that one.
You can try that one.
My goodness, those matching shoes. Oh my gosh, guys.
We got to keep them hidden. We want to surprise everybody. Okay? We want to surprise them.
Can those talk?
Yeah.
Will Mama help?
No, I help them. I have to help them talk. Yep. You gonna ring it today? Okay. Now remember. Hard. shot? Oh man, you are good. Woo! You are good at that. All right, more opportunity as always to visit after our services during social hour, but let's move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
Our opening reflection is a poem by Teresa Soto entitled, "To the People Who Have Mistaken Freedom for Liberation." To be free, you must embrace the breadth of your own existence without apology, even if they try to take it from you. You must know not that you can do whatever you want. You are not a kudzu vine eating entire hillsides for the purpose of feeding your own lush life. You must know instead that inside you are entire universes, milky blue, magenta, and gold, expanding. But to actually be free, you must know and you must fight for the entire universes inside of everyone else. Being free is not a license, but a promise.
Our second song of the morning is number 145 in your gray hymnals, or of course you can access the screen. It's called As Tranquil Streams. Please rise as you're willing and able. As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free, free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed, free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need, a freedom that reveres the past but trusts the dawning future more, and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free.
We'll now kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds, and we begin, as we have been as of late, with a candle for the people of Ukraine and that region of the world that are being most devastated by the violence going on there. Also for church member Terry Anderson. Terry is one of our Canadian members who actually host our morning Zoom for those who have been here then and met Terry on Zoom. He had a heart incident earlier this week and had to have a pacemaker put in. So he's doing well, but certainly want to kindle a candle of care for him at this time. And let's take a moment of silence on behalf of others that you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud if you'd like. those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world. Larissa, thank you so much. Wonderful as always, and how nice of you to always share your talent with us when you're in town for the holidays. So really appreciate it. And Maura, of course, the perfect accompanist. Well, it is now time for our story for all ages, and mine is going to be a turkey compared to that. I can tell you that in more ways than one. But I would invite the children and anyone else who wants to come and sit up here where you can see. There. Perfect. All right. Hey. All right. Good job. Okay. I'll be right back. Something is hopping around my feet. Let me see what it is, okay? Hang on. What the heck? My goodness. How did you get it? How did you get in here? Look at this. So it looks like one of the wild turkeys has managed to get inside our building this morning. I have no idea what you're saying. I'm afraid I don't understand a word that he means. Is there anybody here who talks turkey? You talk turkey. Do you know what he's saying? He is saying gobble gobble. That's true. So I don't know what to do here. I'm sorry. You hear that? What? Oh my goodness, look. It is Noth from Noth visiting us from his home world. Greetings, Noth. Greetings, earthlings. I'm here to visit my family for Thanksgiving. Family? You mean there are aliens living here on Earth? Lots of them. Really? But mostly those who can't afford to live anyplace else. Okay, like who? Elon Musk. Okay, I think we all assumed that he was an alien. Who else? Oh, I'm sorry, I almost forgot about you. Does anybody seriously talk turkey? I do. I should have known. Please, would you translate what the turkey is saying to us? What's he saying? He says, hello. Wow. Well, that's it. That was a whole lot of gobbling for just a hello. Yes, turkeys enjoy saying hello to one another and take a lot of time doing it, unlike you rude humans who simply say hello and leave it at that. Okay, all right. Well, now what's he saying? He's still saying hello. Turkeys enjoy it so much, it's just about everything they say. Okay. Would you ask him what he's doing here? Gobble. He says he lives his life traveling the world, finding work along the way, before continuing on to someplace else. He said all that with just one gobble. Turkeys can be very direct when they want to be. I see. That's what talking turkey is all about. Oh, I guess it is. Okay, well, why is he here at the Unitarian Universalist Church? He says he's here because he's heard that you are having trouble finding turkeys for Thanksgiving, and he wants to apply for the job. Apply? No. We don't have any jobs here for turkeys. Would you please tell him that it's not a good idea for turkeys to respond to job postings around Thanksgiving? He says Thanksgiving is his favorite holiday. He wakes up every day just thankful he's still alive. Okay, well, if he wants to stay that way, he should plan on not working on the holidays. He says he thanks you for the advice, but he'll take his chances. Well, okay, in that case, we'll just let him know that we don't have any need for turkeys around here at this time. I won't say anything else about that. Gobble. He says it never hurts to ask. Well, not sure that's always true, especially in his case, but listen. It's been good to see you, and we wish you both a happy holiday and long lives. And would you please tell the turkey so long for us? Oh, no. That would be a mistake. It takes turkeys longer to say goodbye than it does hello. Well, in that case, just thank you both for being here. Not thank you for coming all this way to help us talk turkey. Thank you. Now, do you know the moral to that story? So the moral to that story is that Elon Musk is an alien. Aliens talk turkey, and therefore Twitter is for turkeys. Okay? All right, we will now sing our children out.
We're switching gears a little bit. This is our time for meditation. I invite you to find a comfortable posture. Close your eyes if you wish and take some deep breaths as we enter our time of meditation with these words from a Sufi teaching. God sleeps in the rock, dreams in the plant, stirs in the animal, and awakens in man.
For our reading today, I offer these brief words attributed to St. Francis of Assisi. Where hate rules, let us bring love. Where sorrow, joy. Let us strive more to comfort others than to be comforted, to understand others than to be understood, to love others more than to be loved. For it is in giving that we receive, and in pardoning that we are pardoned. Ditto, ditto, ditto. Thank you so much. So, assuming human psychology has remained fundamentally the same throughout our existence, then we can assume that our most ancient ancestors were motivated by some of the same unconscious needs, fears, and desires still motivating us. Developmental psychologist Robert Kegan says that the two greatest yearnings of human life may be the yearning for inclusion, to be welcomed in, next to, held, connected with, a part of, and the yearning for distinctness, to be autonomous, independent, to experience our own agency, the self-chosenness of my purposes. If he's right, the greatest source of human anxiety is the conflict between our opposing need for both freedom and belonging, which presents itself as a conflict between society and the individual. Freud said that every individual is virtually an enemy of civilization, and civilization has to be defended against the individual, and its regulations, institutions, and commands are directed to that task. Hence, throughout human history, whether part of a handful of ancient humans living in a small troop led by a dominant male, or a modern human living in a global society, Freud says a great part of the struggles of mankind centers around the single task of finding some expedient, satisfying solution between these individual claims and those of the civilized community. As a student of psychology, I'd say it is the so-called civilized community that usually wins out. This is not only because societies are collectively more powerful than the individuals who make them up, but also because the need to belong is greater in us than the need to be free. We can survive without much freedom, even if our lives are not optimal, but we cannot survive without others, whom we depend upon for our survival. As social psychologist Erich Fromm says, this identity with nature, clan, religion gives the individual security, but can block one's development as a free, self-determining, productive individual. But at least, he says, one does not suffer from the worst of all pains, complete aloneness. Right? We'd rather give up being free than to be alone. That's why exile was such an ancient form of punishment, so torturous. Again, as Kegan puts it, our survival and development depend on our capacity to recruit the invested attention of others to us, and that there is no sadder or more thought-provoking material in the research of infancy than the documentation that babies fail to thrive and even die without an attachment to a consistently persistent and present caretaker. As newborns who are entirely helpless and dependent upon our bond with our mothers or our surrogate mothers, and to a lesser extent the rest of our family, we have no initial thought or desire of becoming independent from them. We begin life by identifying so closely with others, especially our primary caregivers, that we have almost no independent sense of ourselves, at least initially. And many of us continue this pattern of psychological codependence with others throughout the rest of our lives, with no desire to leave or lose that sense of belonging, acceptance, the security of our families and the other significant people and groups that we have become enmeshed in. For these, true freedom and independence can be terrifying. But if we cannot overcome our fear of freedom, we are likely to get stuck in an immature stage of development, at a conventional stage in which we consider our own worth based upon how well we satisfy the expectations of others. not upon our own expectations of ourselves, and our morality remains an authoritarian devotion to law and order and convention rather than to our own authentic values and principles. If we get stuck at this stage, we cannot fully unfold as individuals. We cannot self-actualize and achieve our full potential. For those in whom this has taken place, Freud says, are turned from being opponents of civilization into being its vehicles. When individuals are fixated or stuck in an immature stage of development, rather than striving to fully mature, they actually come to work in the interest of the collective to thwart individuation and development in others too. They literally become lost in the crowd. As developmental psychologist Jean Piaget says, mass movements create a social unit at the expense of individuals who lose their critical sense, their personality, and even their moral sense. Or as Carl Jung put it, man in the crowd is unconsciously lowered to an inferior moral and intellectual level. It's important to point out that such thinking on the part of psychologists, sociologists, and philosophers is modern thinking. The idea that people should be free and relatively unrestrained by society has only become a moral expectation during the past few hundred years. Prior to this, it was taken for granted that most people were meant to be ruled over by a dominant patriarch or monarch or a priest or a religious authority and so on. Such was considered the natural order of things, as determined by the fates, the gods, or one's class or caste at birth. The worth and dignity of every person would have been so unthinkable at the time that the mere suggestion of it would have probably sounded like the punchline of a joke. People should be free? People have worth and dignity? What? We're just trying to survive. As for the few in the ruling class, the ruling classes of human society, they too were convinced they were divinely chosen to govern everyone else because they were born inherently better, and that those who they were elected to rule over were born inherently worse. And most human beings were considered inferior by the very few who ruled over them, and those they ruled considered themselves inferior beings who were deserving of their inevitable circumstances. This resulted in a negative view of humanity and human nature in general. In Western religion, this has expressed itself, obviously, in Christianity's doctrine of original sin, the belief that every person is born flawed or fallen. And today, even those who may not subscribe exactly to this doctrine hold a negative view of human nature. Right? So often we hear some of the terrible things that go on and we say, that's just human nature. Or we express our mistrust of what others are going to do because you know human nature. Freud said the doctrines of religion are not a subject that one can quibble about. Our civilization is built on them, and the maintenance of human society is based upon a majority of people believing in the truth of those doctrines. Our society has been built on this belief in human depravity, or the disbelief in human goodness. Be they church doctrine, social laws, cultural norms, and mores, they are rooted in the idea that it is a society's task to keep our base instincts in check, not to establish systems that allow us to make our own choices about what is good and what is good for us. But roughly 2,600 years ago, one of the most spectacular events in history occurred, something so extraordinary that philosopher Bertrand Russell once said, "Nothing like it has ever occurred before or since." I'm talking about the birth of Western philosophy in the Greek city of Miletus. That's where, for the first time, as far as we know, some thinkers attempted to explain the world in natural rather than supernatural terms. As important as this giant intellectual leap forward was, just as important is the implication that to achieve such understanding required a positive belief and confidence in human reason and human agency. As basic as this might now seem, it was a historic game changer. For the first time, there was a positive belief about the potential of every human being. And that meant that there was something good that all people shared in common. Rulers and the ruled, kings and their subjects, rich and poor, Christians and non-Christians, blacks and whites, males and females, gays and straights, citizens and foreigners, and so on. Of course, we're still trying to achieve the implications of this great awakening, but the seeds of humanity's highest aspirations, seeds that would bloom into dreams of equality and justice and democracy and freedom and tolerance and reason and self-actualization and individual worth and dignity, were all born during this extraordinary magic moment in that tiny Greek island nearly 3 millennia ago. Alas, we all know what happened just a few hundred years later. The Holy Roman Empire emerged. Greek philosophy was considered contrary to the teachings of Christianity. 90% of its writings were destroyed. It was condemned as paganism, and it became illegal to teach or talk about. Historians called the lengthy period that followed the Dark Ages. But it may just as easily be considered a return to the kind of primitive thinking that existed prior to the miracle in Miletus, the kind of thinking that viewed all of humanity in a negative and cynical light, as an untrustworthy and malicious creature that needed to be under the constant control of the authorities who had been magically granted divine insights and divine rights to rule over them. It wasn't until the papal authority began to weaken, the start of the 14th century, and some thinkers dared to question church doctrine, that things slowly began getting better again, including the reemergence of a more positive view of human nature. Among them was Francesco Petrarch, born in 1304, who became known as the father of humanism. Not the humanism of the 20th century, but historical humanism, the liberal humanism. Petrarch studied what was left of the early philosophers' writings and teachings and other forbidden works of antiquity, and emphasized the importance of studia humanitatis, studying all the works of humanity. Think about that, coming out of such a dominant ideology, teaching the study of all the works of humanity. Today this may seem obvious, but at the time, after centuries of having a single truth forced upon all of society under the cynical presumption that people are too sinful and dangerous to think for themselves, the idea that human beings everywhere, including those outside the Christian world and those from the long ago past, had something significant to say, was unthinkable. The period to follow this major paradigm shift, this studia humanitatis and its positive view of humanity, has become known as the Renaissance. And Renaissance means renewal, and was named such because of this renewed interest in the whole of humanity's forbidden works, especially those of the early philosophers who first began seeking answers to life's questions by examining empirical evidence through the use of human agency and human reason. Whatever else they were to discover, whatever other values would develop, I cannot emphasize enough that the very beginning of these intellectual revolutions, the very beginning of liberalism, both in Miletus and during the Renaissance, started with a positive view of human nature and human potential. That is where liberalism begins. Once we accept this, that all humans share a good and common nature, no matter where they are from, what language they speak, what beliefs they hold, or how otherwise different they might be, then a common humanity ethic must follow. The idea that all people are equal and deserving of the same basic rights. If a peasant is as worthy of respect as a king, for example, we must begin to ask, what is the purpose of a king to begin with? England? If we are to have a king or any kind of government, their purpose ought to be to serve the welfare of their citizens, not the other way around. That's Enlightenment thinking. Better still, why not just get rid of the king and give everyone an equal voice? An idea that established the beginnings of democracy. Let us self-govern. We can be trusted. And once this positive view of humanity emerged, so did the ideas that people should be free to think and speak and decide for themselves, and that what people believe and expect others to believe should be based on empirical evidence and sound reason, and that in order to guarantee these rights, these fundamental rights for everyone, societies must be tolerant and become tolerant of the many differences within them. In fact, it was the Unitarians who emerged during the Renaissance that put this latter principle to the test by establishing the very first religious toleration law in Western history, the Edict of Torda, established in Transylvania in 1568. In our dominions there will be freedom of conscience, the edict declared, and no one shall be reviled for his religion by anyone. And it is not permitted that anyone should be treated or should threaten anyone else by imprisonment or by removal from his post for his teaching. 1568. These Renaissance principles, freedom, reason, tolerance, flourished during the Enlightenment period that was to follow between the 17th and 19th centuries, and are the basis upon which Western society is now founded. More honestly, they are the principles toward which Western society aspires, or at least claims to aspire, and ought to aspire toward. They are the principles upon which the United States is founded, and the principles upon which the most liberal religion, our religion, Unitarianism, is founded, both of which claim the common humanity ethic, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Happiness was also a gift of the Enlightenment. People didn't think they had a right to be happy or a right to pursue happiness prior to the belief in human dignity. And in recent years, in 1985 to be precise, American Unitarians re-articulated this ethic in its first of 7 principles: respect for the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Yet it is a much older principle that was first articulated in some form by theologian Martin Luther, who believed that humans should be free because God had given them dignity. Humans should be free because God had given them dignity. Enlightenment philosopher Immanuel Kant echoed this sentiment with his categorical imperative, insisting that no person should be treated as a means to somebody else's ends, but should be considered an end within themselves. They should be able to choose, that is, their purposes and their sources of meaning. And as Francis Fukuyama reminds us in his book, Identity, the desire for the state to recognize one's basic dignity has been at the core of democratic movement since the French Revolution, which occurred during the Enlightenment. Fukuyama also reminds us the principle of human dignity has been embedded in a significant number of modern democratic constitutions, including those in Germany, Italy, Ireland, Japan, Israel, and South Africa. For example, Article 1, Section 1 of the German Basic Law of 1949 states The dignity of man is inviolable. To respect and protect it shall be the duty of all public authority. Similarly, Section 10 of the South African Constitution states, everyone has inherent dignity and the right to have their dignity respected and protected. And the South African Constitutional Court has noted, a right to dignity is an acknowledgement of the intrinsic worth of human beings. So by now you're probably asking, if this is a foundational principle in so many societies, including our own, why is there so much indignity in the world? Despite the highest of aspirations articulated in our own Constitution, we have tolerated long periods of slavery and Jim Crow laws and gender inequality and racist internment camps and debtors' prisons and disproportionate minority punishment and confinement and all manner of other inequalities and indignities. This is why I prefer to call these principles aspirations, because we are still striving to perfect them within our societies, even as we struggle against that other authoritarian instinct that seeks for us to constantly turn back the clock. Our devotion to human worth and dignity, and to the principles of freedom and reason and tolerance that must follow from that dignity, is imperfect and is not fully shared by all of us. Authoritarian governments, as Fukuyama says, fail to recognize the equal dignity of their citizens. That's what authoritarians do. Authoritarians believe, I should be in charge of everyone else. But there are also many citizens with an authoritarian attitude, a wish to control the narrative, who don't recognize the equal dignity of their fellow citizens. Even as we still strive to fully achieve these highest of human aspirations, there remain primitive instincts and forces seeking to eliminate them and return to the old model of human society in which a great and mighty silverback of sorts dominates us all. Could even be one with reddish hair. Even today, the Unitarian Universalist Association, the headquarters of what was once the world's most liberal religion, has utterly abandoned its democratic principles and has now proposed to eliminate its 7 principles altogether, including its first principle, the worth and dignity of every person. For it has embraced authoritarianism and now seeks to eliminate any devotion to individuality and personal freedom altogether. And I'm going to say more about this next week. There have been some troubling developments in the UUA within these past couple of weeks. One, an announcement about the attempt at least to eliminate those 7 principles, but also they announced the coronation of the individual who will be the new president of the association, unchallenged by any other potential candidates. So I'm going to have more to say about that next week, but for now I just want to say, if it can happen to Unitarian Universalism, and I know those of you who've been in this religion for a while understand what I'm saying, if it can happen to Unitarian Universalism, it can happen to any organization. Ours would have been the last religion you would have thought this could happen to. Fortunately, these enduring values, no matter how imperfectly observed, are perennial and not dependent upon the continuation of the Unitarian Universalist Association or any other organization for that matter. So long as there are human beings on earth, these principles will persist and reemerge. This is so because they exist in the heart of every person, this yearning to be free, but are at odds with that other yearning to be included. Quite a thing to be a creature born with built-in angst. When the latter is dominant, people fear and hate and disrespect those who are different. But when the yearning to be free is primary, the worth and dignity of every person becomes paramount. It becomes our starting place. And this is so for all of us, whether we're liberal or conservative. Just say those words to somebody who's conservative. Freedom, reason, tolerance. And see how moved they are. And it is by appealing to this instinct, this basic need, that we can come together. Not merely as a society, but as a species, no matter who or where we are from. Currently, there are many circumstances in the world that understandably make us afraid. Afraid of the future and afraid of each other. And our instinct is to retreat into group identity, nationalism, prejudice, and to feel hostile towards those who have different ideas than us. This has become the norm again in our society. Whether it's Fox News or Facebook. Attack, attack, attack. We want to take control of the narrative, and by thus doing the way that others look at the world, by becoming authoritarian and intolerant. And this is the reason that Unitarian Universalism exists, or is supposed to exist, an entire religion based upon the principle that every person, every individual has inherent worth and dignity, and therefore should be free and equal. Fortunately, our congregations remain independent from the illiberal organization the UUA has become, which means we can continue to do our job by not only living out our highest aspirations amongst ourselves, but by reminding everyone of these powerful longings that dwell within the soul of every human, every person. In the U.S., Unitarianism, which was formed during the Enlightenment, was initially called Arminianism, defined by a belief that every person is born with the potential for good. That's how our religion started. That's how American Unitarianism began, with the positive belief about human nature. And it is this positive view of humanity that lies at the foundation of our faith, in the highest aspirations of our society, and in the only hope there is for a better, more just, and loving future. Our liberal faith is rooted in our yearning to be free and in our desire to fashion a society in which all people are free to fully unfold. Thank you.
Well, our closing hymn asks us to wake up to the values that Todd has been talking about and to apply them to our fellow human creatures. So please rise to sing number 298, Wake Now My Senses.
With justice
Our benediction is from two sources. From the poet Rumi, be a lamp or a lifeboat or a ladder. And from Sir Francis Bacon, begin doing what you want to do now. We are not living in eternity. We have only this moment, sparkling like a star in our hand and melting like a snowflake. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.